I am Elena Carter. I live in a small apartment in Brooklyn with a view of a brick wall and a sliver of sky. The rent takes a big bite from my check every month, but it is mine and I keep it neat. I sweep the old wood floors on Sundays, water the spider plant by the window, and keep my shoes lined up by the door like quiet boats. I hang one framed photo in the hallway. My parents on their wedding day, my mom in a lace dress, my dad in a dark suit, both of them grinning like the world had just opened for them. I used to look at that photo and feel safe. I still want to. For a year, I put money aside so I could send them somewhere beautiful. I cut little costs and big ones too. I stopped ordering takeout and learned to make pasta with garlic and lemon. I packed lunch for work and took the train instead of a car. I kept a white envelope in my desk with a sticky note that said, Hawaii in blue ink. At the end of each month, I added what I could. Some months it was $500, some months $800. I tracked every dollar in a simple sheet and watched the number grow like a plant that needed water and patience more than sunlight. When I reached $8,400, I felt brave enough to plan the trip. I booked a one-week stay at a nice hotel with big windows and a view of the water. I paid for flights from New York to Honolulu and back. I picked seats together and paid the extra fee so my mom could sit by the window because she likes to watch the clouds. I added a sunset cruise because my dad, Mark, once told me that nothing beats the light at sea in the evening. I bought a pair of matching shell necklaces as a joke. When I clicked confirm, my hands shook. I had never spent that much money at once, but I want to give them something soft and warm to carry into their next year together. I sent the surprise as a bright email with a little balloon emoji. I wrote, "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. Pack your bags. We fly in 2 weeks. I'm coming with you so I can watch you smile, and I'll take all the photos. Love, Elena." I put my phone down and waited, trying not to stare. The first reply came from my mom, Diane, a chain of hearts and exclamation marks. The second came from my dad. "Kiddo, you're amazing." I can almost hear the waves already. My younger sister, Ivy, called me, her voice fast and sweet. "You did this?" she asked. "You really did this?" I laughed and said yes, and she said, "I'll pack extra sunscreen. You know I burn like toast." That night, I walked to the old brownstone where we grew up on Maple Street. The house looked the same from the sidewalk. 3 steps up to the porch, a front door painted a deep red, 2 narrow windows like eyes. The hydrangeas along the fence were big and blue. I ran my hand over the railing the way I used to when I was a kid. Inside, the floors creaked in all the same places. My dad said the roof still leaked near the chimney when the wind blew a certain way. I remembered the winter I paid the $1,800 plumber bill when a pipe split under the sink, and how we all ate soup for a week to calm down. I never minded paying for the house. The house felt like our 4th family member, tough, old, and worth it. At work, I told Aaron, my manager in our New York office, that I would be out for a week. He is a kind man who wears simple ties and remembers birthdays. "Take photos," he said. "Bring me a postcard." My friend Lena, who works in real estate in Manhattan, hugged me in a cafe on Atlantic Avenue and said, "Look at you, Elena, doing something good." The barista wrote my name on the cup with a heart over the E. I felt the goodness like a small fire in my chest. It glowed when I fell asleep and when I woke. On the day of the flight, I zipped my blue suitcase, checked the pockets 3 times, and tucked the shell necklaces into the front pouch. I wore a soft gray sweater and jeans and the sneakers that never hurt my feet. I counted my travel money, $200 in cash for extras, a credit card with a clear limit, a backup card just in case. I texted a neighbor named Grace to ask if she would water my plant, and she sent back a thumbs up and a smile. Outside, the morning had the clean, early taste of New York before the day gets loud. I took the subway to JFK, swaying with the train, feeling the city slide by. Brick, steel, sky. The airport was the usual busy mix of people and rolling bags. I checked the overhead screens and found our flight. I got a coffee and found a seat with a view of Gate 12. I kept looking for my family, expecting their faces to break from the crowd like a wave. I saw a little boy with a red cap sleeping on his father's shoulder. I saw a couple argue quietly over a bag that would not close. I saw a woman in a bright scarf, her eyes closed, hands on her lap like folded birds. My phone buzzed and I smiled, thinking it was my mom telling me they were near. It was a text from my mom, but it was not what I thought. It said, "The only one we want to have fun with is our younger sister." I stared at the words. I read them again. I felt my stomach drop and then go very still. I read the sentence out loud under my breath, as if saying it could turn it into something else. It did not. It was clear and sharp. It was a door closing that I had never seen as a door. For a few seconds, I could not hear the airport sounds at all. I could only hear the white were in my head and my own breath, steady and fast. I thought of the envelope marked Hawaii. I thought of the hotel with big windows and the seats by the window that I had paid extra for, like a small crown I wanted to place on my mom's head. I thought of my sister, Ivy, the way she clapped when she was excited, the way her laughter could fill a room. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to cry. Instead, I felt something colder and more exact, like the click of a lock that has been shut a long time and finally tells the truth. I walked to the desk at the gate and showed my ticket. The agent, a young woman with a gold name badge that said Maya, looked up. "I'm sorry," I said. "I need to cancel my seat." She frowned a little. "Is everything okay?" I said yes because I did not know what else to say. She typed, checked, and typed again. "You'll get a partial refund," she said. "About $600 back to your card. The rest is not refundable at this time." I nodded. I thanked her. I put the papers she gave me into my bag, next to the shell necklaces that felt heavy now like small stones. I rode the AirTran back to the subway, and then back to Brooklyn. The city looked different, as if someone had shifted the light by a few degrees. I walked up my stairs, opened my apartment, and stood in the doorway for a full minute. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and old wood. My shoes were still lined up like quiet boats. I put my suitcase down. I took the shell necklaces out and laid them in the bowl by the door where I keep my keys. I made tea and held the hot cup in both hands. I sat at my table and looked at the framed photo in the hall until the steam from my tea set off the smoke alarm. I laughed once, a short sound that was not joy, and then I turned off the alarm. In the evening, the sun slid down between the buildings and turned the brick wall outside my window the color of a ripe peach. I opened my laptop and moved the folder named Hawaii into a new folder named Receipts. I opened a blank note and wrote in plain words, what I gave, what I lost, what I keep. I made 3 lists. The first had numbers: $8,400 for the trip, $1,800 plumber bill in winter, $350 a month toward house taxes for 3 years. The second had only one line at first, then another: the seat by the window, the photo I did not get to take. The third list was harder but most important: my name, my work, my keys, my voice. I looked at those words for a long time. Then I closed the laptop and said out loud to the empty room, "I am Elena. I live in America. I will be okay." I looked at the bowl by the door, at the shell necklaces catching the last of the light. Instead of breaking them or hiding them, I left them there. I did not know why. Maybe because the ocean still exists whether or not a person goes to see it. Maybe because a gift, even when refused, says something honest about the giver. Maybe because this was not an ending, not really, but a line I could step over. Somewhere far away, water kept moving. Somewhere closer, in a house on Maple Street, there was a door that had once opened for me. In my small apartment, I set down my cup, got up, and washed the single spoon I had used. I dried it carefully. I put it away. I turned off the lights and let the room go quiet, and I felt the cold, clear space where a hurt used to be filled with air I could finally breathe. Europe was across the ocean. America was all around me. And my next chapter, though I could not see it yet, had already begun to write itself. The morning after the flight that never happened, I woke to the city's soft grind and a message from my sister, Ivy, a sun emoji and photos from the hotel in Honolulu. I muted the thread, made coffee, and walked from my place in Brooklyn to Maple Street to see the house. From a block away, I could tell something was wrong. The hydrangeas were gone. The porch rail had a new sheen, and an orange placard leaned like a verdict. Sold. I stood there with my keys in my hand. The red door had a new lock. I pressed my palm to the glass and saw my face looking like someone else's. A man with a tape measure stepped out, tall, narrow shoulders, a polite nod. "You the stager?" he asked. "I'm Elena," I said. This was my parents' house. He checked a clipboard. Previous owners closed last week. Congrats to the buyers. I called my dad, Mark. No answer. I called my mom, Diane. She picked up on the third ring. "It was time," she said when I asked about the sale. "We got $620,000. We're moving to a condo closer to the river." I swallowed. "When were you going to tell me?" She sighed. "We didn't want drama, Elena. You have your life. Ivy needs help now." "Where did the money go?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. "Some to pay debts, some to Ivy," she said. "Don't be ungrateful. Families change." She ended the call. I sat on the stoop where I learned to tie my shoes and texted Lena, my friend in real estate. "Let's pull the record," she said when she arrived. On her tablet, we found the deed. Sellers Mark Carter and Diane Carter. Buyer, a limited liability company with a Midtown mailing address. The price matched what my mother said. "It's low for this block," Lena murmured. Not criminal, but a bargain. On the walk back, she asked, "Do you want names?" I wanted numbers first. I opened my notes. $350 per month I had sent toward property taxes for 3 years. The $1,800 plumber bill. The $2,000 roof patch last winter. Groceries, rides. The small invisible money that keeps a house standing. I wrote a new line. I do not have to buy love. That night, I called an attorney Lena recommended, a woman named Olivia Brooks. Her voice was even. "If you weren't on the title, you don't own the house," she said. "But you can ask for repayment under unjust enrichment, and you can ask where the proceeds went. I'll draft a letter. Our retainer is $1,200. I agreed. I used my emergency fund and felt both poorer and more solid. Olivia's letter went out the next day. A list of my contributions, a request for $12,800 back, and a demand for the closing statement. A week later, we saw the wire trail. $200,000 landed in a joint account for my parents and Ivy. $60,000 left in pounds to a bank in London. Europe, need on the page. Another $25,000 bought a silver SUV for a man named Daniel Reyes, Ivy's new boyfriend. When I saw his name, something inside me clicked shut. It wasn't rage. It was a boundary. I walked to the river. America is wide. There is room for me. I thought about houses, how they can be loved and still be wrong for you. I thought about keys that fit and those that never will. I put my phone on airplane mode and breathed without counting costs. Today, I spent the next morning at my kitchen table with a yellow pad, a pencil, and a calm I did not fully trust. The bowl by the door still held the 2 shell necklaces. The city outside my window was its usual mix of sirens and coffee smells, but I felt a new kind of quiet inside. I wrote 3 columns: people, places, money. Under people, I listed Mom, Diane, Dad, Mark, my sister, Ivy, her boyfriend, Daniel Reyes, my lawyer, Olivia Brooks, my friend, Lena, my manager, Aaron. Under places, I wrote Brooklyn, Maple Street, Manhattan, and Chicago. Under money, I wrote every dollar I had sent to the house and every dollar I had used to give that trip. The numbers made a small, clean map. It said, I have been steady. It said, "I am not lost." Olivia called at noon from her office in Manhattan. "We got the closing statement," she said. Her voice always sounded like level ground. "The sale price was low for that block, and the buyer is a company that has flipped a string of houses. There's no crime in that, but your parents should be able to show where the proceeds went."
She paused.
"We also have the wire trail. $200,000 to a joint account for your parents and Ivy. £60,000 to a bank in London. And a $25,000 payment to a dealer in New Jersey for a silver SUV." I wrote each line in my neatest hand and did not let my voice shake. "Thank you," I said. "Send the formal demand." She already had. That afternoon I walked to Maple Street. The red door on the old house had a new keypad lock. Through the front window, I could see a man on a ladder with a paint roller, turning the living room a pale cream. I stood on the sidewalk and thought of all the nights I carried groceries up those steps when Dad's back hurt, and the winter I paid the $1,800 plumber bill so we could have hot water. A woman with a clipboard stepped out and smiled the thin smile of someone on a deadline. "Open house next month," she said. "It will go fast." I nodded and did not say who I was. The street felt like a book I had once loved and now kept on a high shelf. Lena met me at a diner on Court Street and slid into the booth with a tablet and a frown. "I pulled comps," she said. "4 nearby homes closed in the last 8 months for higher prices. Not illegal to sell low, but it shows they wanted speed over value." She tapped the screen. "Some buyers hunt for families like this. Folks who want out and do not fight on price." She looked up. "I'm sorry." I took a breath and told her the part one had not said to anyone. The text at the airport, the way my stomach went still, the sound of my name inside my own head. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You can't fix people who choose not to be fixed," she said. "But you can fix your plan." The plan started small. I moved $3,000 into a savings account I named Keys. I cut my streaming bills and called my phone company for a better rate. I set a weekly cash envelope for groceries and wrote down every receipt. I told Aaron I could take more work. He smiled and put me on a client in Chicago for a short project. I flew out on a Thursday night, walked by the river after a long meeting, and let the clean Midwestern wind do its work. I stayed at a modest hotel, ate soup at the bar, and made a list on a napkin. Build an emergency fund to $10,000, pay down the last $4,200 of my student loans, stop paying for anyone who treats love like a coupon. When I came back to Brooklyn, Olivia had a letter from my mother's lawyer, a brisk page that called me misguided and offered $2,000 as a gesture. I read it twice and felt a steady heat rise in my chest, not wild, just sure. I told Olivia to refuse.
She did.
A week later, another letter came with a check for $12,800, the exact sum we had listed. The memo line read repayment.
"No, sorry."
No note, just dollars. I stood at my sink with the check in my hands and felt something heavy lift off the back of my ribs.
Not joy.
Not yet.
But space.
That night I walked past the old house one more time.
The paint was dry.
The porch light glowed. A man I did not know stood in the doorway and tested the keypad like a person learning a new song. I wished him well, without saying his name. Houses move on. People move on. I am still here. I am still in America, in this city that wants and sometimes gives. I went home to my small apartment, set the check on the table, and wrote one line in my notebook. I will build a home that does not ask me to buy my place in it. Then I turned off the light and let the night be dark and whole. I woke before dawn, the city still half asleep, and laid the check for $12,800 on the table like a small flag. The bowl by the door held my keys and the 2 shell necklaces, catching the gray light. I brewed coffee and opened my notebook. New page. New math. I wrote the numbers slow and plain. Savings now $17,300. Goal for a down payment $40,000. Closing costs to plan for, maybe $8,000 more. Emergency fund to keep at least $10,000. I drew a box around Keys Fund and underlined it twice. I was not buying love anymore. I was buying a home for me. Lena met me by the river in Brooklyn with a folder of listings. She wore a navy coat and that honest look I trust.
We start simple, she said.
A one-bedroom. Good light. Sound bones. You can paint the rest. We walked the long path and talked neighborhoods. Queens with quiet blocks, Brooklyn with old brick, a small town a train ride north where the porch lights are soft at night. I told her I wanted a house that did not make me prove I belonged. I wanted a door I could close, not to keep people out, but to keep myself safe inside. She slid a photo from the folder. A tiny white house with a blue door, a square yard, and a tree that leaned like a friend. This one is in budget if we bargain, she said. List is $285,000. It needs work, but not heartbreak. Olivia called that afternoon. The file on the Maple Street sale is closed on my end, she said. You stood up for yourself. That matters. Her voice made my shoulders drop an inch. If you need help on your purchase, I can recommend a closing attorney who charges a flat fee, $1,000. I said yes. It felt clean to say yes to something that was only for me. Before we hung up, Olivia added, You did the brave thing, Elena. I sat with that after the call, the room quiet except for the heater knocking in the wall. Brave did not feel like a roar. It felt like a steady step, then another. The showing for the White House was on a bright Saturday. I took a morning train with a paper cup of coffee and met Lena at the station. The street was simple and kind. Children on scooters, a woman named Grace watering a small garden, a man named Victor fixing a fence. We shook hands and traded names the way neighbors do when they hope to keep seeing each other. Inside, the house smelled like dust and lemon. The living room had 2 tall windows and a scuff on the floor where a couch must have been. The kitchen was old but tidy. In the bedroom, the light came in like a quiet promise. I touched the wall and imagined pain on my hands. In the yard, a robin hopped and tilted its head as if listening to my thoughts. I could see winter here and summer and every ordinary day between. We ran the numbers on the porch steps. If I offered $272,000 and asked for $5,000 in seller credits, my cash at close would be tight but doable. I had my $12,800 check, my savings, and a bonus Aaron had approved for my work in Chicago, $3,000 that had felt big in my account, and now felt like a brick in a foundation. I would still have my $10,000 emergency fund, which mattered most. I could hear my own voice in my head. Don't make the house a hero. Make it a choice. Lena looked at me and grinned. You're ready, she said. I nodded. Let's write. The offer went out on Monday. The seller, a widow named Margaret, countered at $278,000 with the credits. I walked to the river and thought of the long year behind me. The airport, the text, the sold sign, the wire trails in dollars and pounds, the way I learned to say no without shouting. I called Lena. Take it, I said. This feels like a fair door. We signed the papers that afternoon. Olivia's closing contact sent a list of next steps in tidy lines. I sent wire fees and inspection costs without fear. Each dollar felt like a vote for the life I was building. Aaron stopped by my desk in New York to say congratulations, the word warm in his mouth. He asked for my new address so he could mail a card. You did this the right way, he said. I told him it felt good to work hard and have the work turn into walls and windows. In the evening, I walked past the old brownstone on Maple Street. The porch light glowed. The keypad blinked. A man I did not know set a plant by the door. I wished him quiet mornings and strong tea. I did not need to go closer. On the day I picked up my keys, the sky over America was wide and blue. The agent, a kind man named David, shook my hand and said, "Welcome home." I stepped inside and listened. No history asking me to carry it. No ledger of what I owed to be loved. Just a small house that fit my name. I set the shell necklaces on a bowl by the new door and said out loud, "This is mine." Europe was an ocean away, steady on the map. Here, in this room, I could make soup for friends, I could read at the window, I could sleep without bracing. I could begin.